Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. This is the weekend edition where we interview notable people from the world of real estate investing. Today's no exception. We have a great guest all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, Dan Butler.
Thank you for having me, Victor. I'm excited to be on.
Great to have you here. So, Dan, you're invested heavily in the Memphis market in multiple different facets. You have a property management firm, and I'd love for our listeners to hear how things are going in Memphis. Memphis is a unique market, not like some of the other markets in the central part of the country, and in particular, would love to hear about how things are going now during the pandemic.
Well, that's a great question. I think we started out, going into March, just super fearful, with just the news and the media and, of course, the virus and, its impact with jobs and all that stuff. But it's been super interesting to watch because, you and I talked about this a little bit before the show started, but the economic base in Memphis is more in that, say, $12 to $15 an hour range. And so with the big surprise for me was with stimulus checks and unemployment checks and those kind of things, that our rent collection rate was actually better March, April, and June than previous quarters and previous months. So we have not seen an impact as far as just rent collections. So that's been probably the biggest surprise that coming into and out of last several months going into from the pandemic.
Wow, that's extraordinary. I've heard that some markets have experienced a little bit of a dip, not a dramatic dip, but to even see stronger than last year's collected numbers for the same month is extraordinary. What have you done that's different during the pandemic that you might have done on a regular month?
So, yeah, that's a great question. We waived late fees. We actually accepted payment plans. And so, each month was actually, the first month was probably 10 or 15 people. And we managed close to 3,000 properties in the West Tennessee area. So from a percentage standpoint, that was not bad. And we've partnered with a local nonprofit, making ourselves available. Our goal is not to kick people out or, cause an eviction. We want people to pay and stay. So we've agreed to partner with local, nonprofits to, if they pay the rent, that we will continue to work with that tenant, that resident for, as long as it takes. So just try to be a little more creative, a little more forgiving, having some empathy. That's been key, I think, just showing that we're trying to be good stewards and partners with our residents and helping take care of the houses and our investors, because we have investors from really all over the world. So they've all been really good to work with, which has been awesome. Usually it's a little bit tougher sell when you're trying to work with a resident who's getting behind, and the owner wants that tenant out ASAP. And this time period has changed that mentality a little bit and said, look, we're all human. We need a place to stay. We've never seen this before. So let's try to work with them as best as possible. So that's been a blessing for everybody.
I love that. One of the things that when we talk about a moratorium on evictions, that clearly eliminates one of the tools that landlords have to enforce when a tenant doesn't pay the rent, but that's not the only tool. So if that one's taken away, what other approaches are at your disposal?
As far as like to keep a tenant moving?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's funny you asked that. We were just having this conversation about kind of revamping and make it kind of standard practice of going back to cash for keys. So standard eviction for us cost about $225, and that's attorney, process server, and then the paperwork for the city, for the government. So we've talked to our clients and said, look, why don't we just offer them $250 to be out in 2 weeks? And most clients are jumping on that. We had to put some special processes in place to manage that because it's a whole new process. But we saw some good success with it through this pandemic. And so we've kind of re-implemented that as a strategy to try to circumvent the courts. So, because the courts literally, they open back up June 15th, and we've been able to file one writ in 2.5 weeks, which means the ability to remove a tenant from a house. We've filed one out of dozens and dozens. So it's going to be a slow trudge through this for the next several months.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I imagine the $250 cost that you're referring to pale in comparison to the cost of a unit turn when you do face an eviction. You're probably dealing with much higher costs to get that unit rent ready, where if they leave on more amicable terms, your unit turn costs are probably going to be lower. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Yes, that's correct.
So, in addition to facing the costs of the eviction, when you do face a unit turn, what would you say your average number is? Is it $1,000? Is it 2,000 to turn a unit, get it rent ready again?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, about $2,000. Yeah, that's probably about a good average now. I mean, as you know, the economy's hustling and bustling, and finding labor that's willing to do it for cheap pricing is a much harder sell these days. You got to make it up on volume, and so yeah, 2,000 is probably a very good number to kind of budget for and plan for. So if you can save that and keep that tenant in there, you absolutely want to do that, because from our math, you really need that resident be in there for 2 years plus for it to really cash flow nicely like you want it to. So
That makes a lot of sense. What kind of processes and systems did you have to put in place just from a physical standpoint during the pandemic, during the lockdown period? I imagine you're partway out of the lockdown now, although it could come back at any time depending on how things go. What kind of processes did you have to put in place?
yeah, it's funny. We've have it. We used to have residents and tenants, coming through our doors all day, every day for different various reasons, leasing, paying deposits, maintenance issues or whatever. And we have not had anybody inside the building since 1st of March. We use traction, so we have rocks and scorecard and processes and things like that. So, and one of the goals for the front desk was, I just met with her a couple hours ago, was how do we not have to have anybody come to this building again? And one of those key, and this is good thing I think for your listeners to think about, like, we have DocuSign now. So, she is having people bring a form and sign a form to turn their keys in. So we have transfer of ownership back to the property management company from a resident, and we rekey anyway. So it's like, you don't need the keys. Why don't you just send them a DocuSign? They can put it on their phone, and it waives their rights to the house. They said they moved out and given us possession. So she implemented that, and that's dozens, a couple dozen people that don't have to come to the office anymore, and makes it streamlined. And it goes right into the software because it's part of our property management software. And so doing several things like that, the goal is to never go backwards. As bad as all this is, we've been trying to take it as like, what's the positives that come out of this to make us stronger, leaner, faster, more efficient, more buttoned up. So we're constantly, working on that angle.
Have you gone to a higher percentage of ACH or electronic payment for your rent collection as opposed to going and knocking on doors?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's one of her measurables. The same person I was just referring to is to get people to not pay with money orders, and to pay ePay or your local, grocery store, Walmart. We have all those systems set up. So she's being tracked to get that, and get people to have their portals set up so that the residents now, she's got out of 2,000, 3,000 residents, she's got 200 left that don't have a portal set up. And that's one of her goals, is to get that to zero, so that they can communicate through us through technology and not have to be on the phone or at the office or whatever. So
And no more Amazon gift cards.
that's right. That's right.
I love it. So as you look forward, obviously the stimulus money that's been coming from the government through the CARES Act and through various unemployment benefits is key to that continued flow of money. What do you foresee if the stimulus money dries up? I don't imagine it's going to dry up anytime soon. We are in the midst of an election, and I don't think either party's going to want to be seen as the one who turned off the taps. But stimulus money does breed dependence, and it's not going to be there indefinitely. What kind of systems are you using, or what kind of systems are you planning to implement now so that when that does happen, you survive that transition?
Great question. I mean, I think it's, we are pushing hard to get things leased up as high as we can get them. I think we are scrutinizing our applicants to make sure what kind of job, career that person is in, to make sure that we have some longevity there. For our owners, we've just really stressed to, cash management, and trying to just train them on, don't spend the money, just keep it in escrow or keep it in the account with us, or, whatever, just to prepare for that. Because I'm with you. I think you're going to see a shift. I know we're in election year, but I just my gut says September, October is going to be some tough roads ahead when things kind of settle into a new norm,
Yeah, I feel the same way. One of the things we've done is we've increased cash reserves in all of our projects just to make sure that we have additional financial buffer. Wondering if you've done that with any of your owners.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do it for them physically, but we're definitely educating and promoting that for sure, and doing that for ourselves, because I think that's, cash is king, and I think you're just going to have to. I don't think it's going to be as bad as what people, I don't think, like, we're going to go single digits like the hotel industry saw. But I think you're going to see several percentage points dip in the coming months when things settle down a little bit.
One of the things we're seeing when we talk to investors who are looking to place capital, many of them are saying they're just holding on to their cash right now, waiting for distressed assets to hit the market.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling is that's probably still a number of months away. Are you starting to see distressed assets come into the market? And if so, in what numbers?
We are not. I mean, I think I say that you're not seeing it from like the courthouse or foreclosures or banks aren't calling yet. I think we're still 12 or 18 months out, just from what I'm hearing. I will say on the wholesale front, I don't know how familiar your listeners are with wholesaling, but those guys are finding more deals because you've got people that were already kind of motivated, unsure what they want to do, want to get rid of their house, and so this has actually pushed them over the edge. So I don't know if you heard that from others, but wholesaling has actually picked up, I think, and getting those motivators, sellers to go ahead and sell. So that's the only area I've seen personally an uptick here in Memphis.
Yeah, we've heard that as well, and we're not active in that particular space ourselves, but from folks that I talk with, we're hearing similar noises along those lines that there are some folks that might have been on the edge last year, and this year they're over the edge.
Yep, that's right.
Well, Dan, if folks want to get in touch if they want to learn more, what's the best way?
Sure, absolutely. You can go to our website, www.6amcc.com, and my email is dan@6amcc.com.
I love it. Well, Dan, thanks for the perspective. And Memphis is an interesting market. It's one that, as I said, a lot of our listeners do pay close attention to. And so for listeners at home, definitely reach out to Dan at 6amcc.com and have an awesome rest of your weekend. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.